Hello, welcome back to Authors on iTours. I am Lauren Carr, and today we have a return visit with D.H. Lawrence, the author of The Girl of Many Crowns. Some of you may recall that we had an earlier interview with her back in January to discuss her historical quote-unquote fiction novel, which is actually a true story of one of her ancestors, Judith, who was a princess, the girl of many crowns. Well, D.H. Lawrence is back to promote her audiobook. Either it's already out or it will soon be released. And today we have a fascinating conversation about an audiobook production for her novel. So if you're an author who's thinking of maybe I want to release my book in audiobook, or maybe you just love listening to audiobooks and want to know what goes into it, then stick around because you're going to want to learn all about The Girl on Many Crowns coming out in audiobook. Return visit with Deborah, also author D.H. Morris, the author of The Girl of Many Crowns, which is now Deborah, I've been terming this as historical fiction, but it's not historical fiction. It's not fiction because this is the true story of your ancestors. Can you tell for people who have missed, and if you've missed the first interview that I've done with Deborah, then do go back to listen to that. But can you give us a little recap about tell us about The Girl of Many Crowns in the background for this true story?
Well, you are absolutely right. Technically, it is historical fiction. All the events that take place in the book are factual. I took it from the monks' annals that they wrote at the end of each year in the 9th century, and I took 7 years worth of annals and used that as the outline for my book. And during that time, they wrote about the first princess of France. Her name was Judith, and her father, King Charles. Mostly they wrote about the men in those days. But if a woman did something very unusual, scandalous even, then they made it into the annals. And Judith did for these 7 years. Well, her father, King Charles, the first king of France, and it was called Francia at that time, married her for political purposes to the elderly king of Wessex, who was widowed. And he then, just a couple of years later, actually a year and a half later, he dies. And she was the first anointed queen of Wessex. In fact, Wessex didn't even have queens. They just had the wife of the king, who had no real status.
So that's why she's the girl of many crowns. She's not a queen.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, no, because her father said this marriage is happening only if she is not only called queen, but she will be anointed queen. And no queen had ever been anointed by the church before. She is the first. So he wanted her to bear children that would sit on the throne of Wessex and would give him a grandchild in England. So this would expand his reach. So the book starts actually with a knight named Baldwin Ironarm, who is heading to King Charles' palace to offer his services in service of the king, and he becomes the companion to Judith's brother, Louis. Louis the Stammerer.
So did he have a stutter?
Yeah, yeah. He definitely had a stammer, yes. And that's why he was called Louis the Stammerer. So Judith and Baldwin meet each other then. She is 11, turning 12. By the time she turns 12, her father marries her off. She leaves and goes to Wessex, which is the main kingdom within England at that time. And we follow the two stories parallel. Baldwin, as the companion of Louis, is involved in all the wars, assassination plots, the Viking attacks, all of that. And we see what's going on in Francia. And we also see what's going on in Wessex at the time. The civil unrest, the attempt of her husband's, the King of Wessex, son, to take his father's kingdom. So a year and a half after that, Athelwulf, her first husband, passes
Now she would have
away.
been like 14 years old. Yeah, yes. So
Yep.
she's
13,
still,
14.
you know,
13 and a half, widow. And then her father arranges another marriage to his son who had tried to take the kingdom. And he's not the nicest guy. So she's married, compelled to marry twice for political reasons. So she marries him when she's about 14.
Now she hasn't had kids. She hasn't had the grandchild that he wants.
No.
Okay.
No. And then he dies within 2 years.
Are they starting to look at her cross-eyed like, are you a black widow? You start.
Then, well, you have to read the book to find out. And then she decides, I'm going home to France. I'm not waiting for anything from my father. I'm going home to France. She goes home to France and tells her father, I am not marrying again. He's waiting to arrange a third marriage for her. She's only 16 at this time and twice widowed. And she says, no, I will not marry again. And he says, yes, you will, or I'm going to imprison you in the palace until you agree to do this. So she's imprisoned there for at least a year, maybe, at least a year. And in the meantime, of course, she's reunited with her brother and his companion, Baldwin Ironarm, the knight. And she and Baldwin fall in love. Then her brother, and actually she has another brother, he also is part of it. Her two brothers and Baldwin help her to escape from the palace, and she is chased. They are chased all over Europe and end up having to flee to Rome to put their petition before the Pope. And then they have to go into a court battle to try to prevent Baldwin from being taken into custody and maybe executed, and her from being also punished. So that is the basic story of the book. And of course, it ends happily, or I probably wouldn't be here because they are ancestors of mine.
It's so now it is. We're waiting for the audiobook is done, but we're still waiting for the release. And you narrated the Girl of Many Crimes. Tell us about your decision to do that. I consider that awfully brave. I mean, you have a nice voice. I just, but I would never be able to do that myself because I hate my voice. But what went into your decision? Why did you decide to narrate it yourself versus hiring a narrator?
Well, I went back and forth on that. My undergraduate degree is in theater and music. I did a lot of theater when I was younger. And my family encouraged me to do it myself. And I felt like I understood the characters very well. And I felt like it was probably the best decision at the time. I originally, they offered to have my voice taped and then they would put it in AI. Sorry, I have a frog in my throat. And they would use AI to generate using my voice to generate
Wow, I
all of
never
the
heard of that.
characters that
Yeah,
in the
I
book.
never heard of that.
I thought it was a great idea. So they taped my voice and they couldn't do it because the AI could not do the stammer for Louis the Stammerer. And so that actually delayed the book for a couple of months while they were trying to figure out how to make the AI do the stammer. And it is hard to do the stammer. I felt like it was probably one of the hardest parts of doing the book. And the other hard part is there are a lot of characters and a lot of men.
Mhm.
And my voice sounds like a woman's voice, but definitely I tried to capture a unique feel to most of the main
Mhm.
characters and make it as masculine as my voice
And
could be.
capture their personalities and their characters and that.
Yes,
Yeah, I've listened to
absolutely.
books that were from AI. As a matter of fact, Audible has a whole lot of books that are AI voice, and they just don't capture, for fiction, and dramatic. They just don't capture that, and they say the words wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah. Now my
yeah.
husband, he's listened.
And there are a lot of strange, oh,
My
sorry.
husband.
There are a lot of strange words, names, and place names in the book that I thought, I'm not sure that it's hard enough for us to try to pronounce
Mhm.
those.
And so you did
Hmm.
the production yourself. You produced it yourself. You narrated it the book yourself. What actually goes into producing, narrating a book for audiobook? What goes into that? Anyone who's considering doing an audiobook or doing their own book in audio, what do they have to consider? What kind of surprises did you find while trying to do that?
Well, I arranged to work with a company called Audivita, and they told me what equipment to purchase. And I just got it on Amazon. It cost $150. It was, a typical recording microphone with stand and headphones, and they set it up. So all I had to do was plug it into my computer and click on the link when it was time for a recording session. And a wonderful man would come on and we'd talk, and he would say, "Are you ready to read? We're going to do this part." And then I would begin. He was really good at saying, "Can you stop and redo that sentence?" Because I didn't get the last word, or he was very good at that. So that helped a lot. Then it took probably 8 weeks because we didn't record every day. We recorded once or twice a week, and usually for about an hour. There were times when I think an hour was about right. There were a few times I did an hour and a half, and I found that that can be hard on the voice. So, steady talking without any break. I have taught at a community college for 5 years. And yes, after an hour, you're ready for a break.
Now, did he edit it?
They,
Did he put, because he would
they
stop you, so he'd
yeah,
have to piece everything together so that it would flow.
right. And after, we were finished, then it took probably a month of his piecing everything together. And then he sent it for me to review. And then actually before that, he had an assistant who went through it and asked, they had certain, like one sentence here, one sentence there, that they would like redone because it didn't come out right or they missed part of it. So, and then he sent it to me and I looked through it, I listened to it, and I put in any changes I wanted and listed them. And then mainly my changes were I wanted a bigger pause. And I tend to almost step on my previous word. Sometimes when there was a change of scene, I needed to pause for a
Yeah.
few seconds so the reader or the listener could, adapt to the new
Yeah,
scene,
yeah.
a different person, a
I've
different.
listened to books where they didn't have enough of a pause, and you didn't realize, oh, they're in a totally different scene. This is totally different people. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So I found a few of those and they put those in, and then they sent me the um, final recording to listen to. And then from that point, it's finding a distributor. ACX is what you probably want to go through, but you really have to have your either a written book or the ebook version on
Yeah.
Amazon in order to work with them. But they are good to distribute it through across the board through a variety of venues. So
Because I'm thinking ACX is an Amazon company. They're owned by
yeah,
Amazon. So if you
yep,
if an author publishes a book through another party, somebody like Ingram Sparks or Book Baby, are they able to use ACX? Because I use ACX and I have to go on and claim my book and say that's my book
yes,
before they will take it.
exactly, exactly,
And since you're using
yes.
if you're using a third party like Ingram Sparks or Book Baby, then they're going to say, well, but that's Book Baby's book, or is that where they cause some issue?
It can cause an issue. Book Baby has to go in and say, we don't own the Audible
Okay.
rights.
And that concludes this episode of Authors on iTours. If you enjoyed this episode, then do give us a like and a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe so that you can receive notifications for upcoming episodes of Authors on iTours. In the meantime, happy reading!